A big hello and a very warm welcome to the Digital India Summit series with me, Sonali Krishna. In the last 30 years, India has undergone a huge transformation in aspects of day-to-day life. The GDP per capita, literacy and life expectancy is rising consistently, and the country's digital economy is rocketing with each passing day. Popular reports indicate consumer spending will double by 2025 and e-commerce penetration will increase by a factor of 5, creating an ideal environment for exponential growth. Data indicates fintech investments in India have almost doubled to $3.7 billion in 2019, up from $1.9 billion the previous year. This pegs the country as the world's third largest fintech hub, just behind the US and the UK. The B2B market, or rather the B2B e-commerce market, was projected to be 2 times bigger than the B2C market in 2020. In fact, it's expected to grow at a CAGR of 11.1% from 2018 to 2025 and will reach up to $24,265 billion by 2025. Well, these are the figures we've got from reports, but on the show today, we bring to you our esteemed panel, all retail pundits, to talk about the impact digitization has had on retail and its outlook in the near and midterm. So without further ado, let me introduce to you my illustrious panel. We have Arvind Mediratta, Managing Director and CEO, Metro Cash and Carry India. Hi. Mohit Kampani, Chief Executive Officer, Hypermarkets More Retail. Hi. And last but not the least, Kumar Rajagopalan, Chief Executive Officer, Retailers Association of India. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us right here on the Digital India Summit. So I'm going to dive straight in. There's been a lot of talk about the fact that there has been exponential growth when one talks of digitization of commerce. It's also talked about the fact that the pandemic has given an impetus to e-commerce specifically. I want to know from the panel today, is it true that online platforms have gained favorably compared to offline shops when it comes to buying regular items, and also looking at the other end of the spectrum when it comes to buying luxury? What has been your observation when it comes to that? And also my second part to you is, what has happened in terms of reduction of operation costs in logistics?
What I will say is that this is something that I have been sharing, the AC Nielsen data, that contrary to popular expectations and contrary to popular belief, the share of e-commerce between the pre-pandemic period and the post-pandemic period, at least in the food and grocery business, is not significant. It was 7.3% share in January, February, March 2020, which is a pre-pandemic period, and now it has gone up to 7.7%. So the increase is only 40 basis points. On the other hand, the traditional mom and pop kirana stores, their share has gone up from 68 to 71%. And whom have they gained at? They have gained at the expense of modern trade. Now, of course, if you look at some of the other categories like general merchandise, the share and the penetration of e-commerce is much higher. And there are certain reasons why in food and grocery, the share of traditional brick and mortar channels continues to be high. One, of course, is that many of these players have been very agile and very alert in terms of adopting the omni-channel trend. So most of the physical brick and mortar retailers before the pandemic have now adapted their business model and transformed themselves into omni-channel players. That's one of the reasons why we have not lost share so much. In fact, if I talk about our own company, Metro Cash and Carry, we do a lot of business with kiranas. And kiranas now are a big chunk of our sales. I will say 60% of our business comes from them. And within kiranas, I will say about 30% of business is through the online channel, which is something that we did not even expect. So physical retailers are going online way, and online retailers are coming and acquiring physical chain. They acquired, Whole Foods earlier.
Let me take it to you, Mohit, and can you give me a perspective? Like he's given me a wide perspective on B2B. Can you give me a perspective on B2C and what you're seeing? Is it that AC Nielsen data is stating that e-commerce has only gone up 40 basis points, despite the fact that, it had such an advantage with the pandemic? How do you see the future pan out? And also in terms of, if you could also throw some light on customer personalization. with e-commerce platforms offering almost everything with heavy discounts and offers, what has been your observation in how well the customer personalization process has evolved with the digitization of commerce?
So, let me just start by saying that at least in my career, I haven't seen the customer journey evolve so rapidly and so significantly than perhaps in the last, 7-8 quarters. And clearly, as retailers, we've had to not only adapt, but also evolve. That's very, very clear. One clear manifestation of that is, of course, creating an omni-channel experience. Not only omni-channel shopping, but I think beyond that, even perhaps omni-channel delivery, returns, more comprehensive. And I think for me, the next step of that is going to be into the space of unified commerce, which is what China is heading into or is well entrenched into. I had the opportunity to visit China just before COVID, and there is no distinction or there are no silos there of social, e-commerce, physical. It's all a seamless experience. So, you shop on your app. And I think unified commerce, or as Jack Ma used to call it, new retail, is possibly the next evolution. So omni-channel, certainly you need to be here now, and it's made us offer new services which we didn't have before. And I think hopefully own the customer or get her loyalty better. So that's the first part. I think the second piece clearly is today more than ever, we have cutting edge tech such as AI, augmented reality, virtual reality. And I think these are all going to become very central to our customer journey. They're going to come. Now, depending on the category, you mentioned luxury at the beginning. Perhaps, those categories will see more of it at the beginning, but, shades of difference. This is going to become central to your experience. And as retailers, we need to be cognizant and start adapting in the way suitable to our category. The third piece, of course, is, as retailers, the way we are using data analytics, machine learning, really to inform more major business decisions, I think has been a very good evolution of the last few quarters. Easy examples, for instance, pricing today is done out of analytics. It's what consumers are telling us rather than what we think consumers want. And across the business, routine processes are being run by robots today, etc. So I think this part of digitization has, of course, made us more efficient and helped us bring costs down. So I think those are the three parts of it. And to me, it's fascinating to see the CJM continuing to evolve. I think now it will really start gaining momentum into portraying a new omni-channel universe across categories. On personalization, very interesting question. And one would imagine that purely digitally native businesses would be the first ones to adapt it, promote it. But at least in my industry, it's quite the opposite because there is a mad scramble for transactions and orders. It's quite the reverse, actually, which is to get bills going on a daily basis, and the count is more important rather than speaking to her. Hyper personalization, which is what I call it, is certainly the future. And today's technology helps us go in that direction. The days of taking out a shotgun and blasting and hoping it'll stick onto some people are clearly over. And consumers will prefer brands which speak to them directly and are relevant in their conversation with the consumer. I think that's clearly the future.
Kumar, I want to ask you a candid question where, today we're seeing Kirana's thriving as per Arvind and Mohit's, answers. We're seeing modern trade also not doing too badly. We're seeing quick commerce gaining momentum. So looking at all the facets of retail and the new formats that are emerging, finally, the customer is only spending so much. So there has to be some type of cannibalization. My question to you is, in the near and mid-term, what is going to be cannibalized? And according to you, what will flourish?
It's a nice question, but part of the answer was already given by you at the start of the session today. wherein you said that the per capita income is growing, people are feeling better in this country. Therefore, the size of the pocket is increasing. So we should not think that the size of the pocket will remain stagnant. It is going to keep increasing. I'll give you a simple example. If you only look back into your own refrigerator, let's say 15 years before, to what you have in your refrigerator today, or whoever, right? I hope you're older than 15 years. But if you look at it, one would have one sauce inside, one jam inside, and may have, if possible, one milk. That's about the kind of things that was there. But look at the range of items that's kept in the refrigerator of an average middle class person in the country today. It's just gone berserk. And that's not happened because there is a limitation in pocket. It's happened because there is huge amount of aspiration. So I think as retail gets evolved, as the options get evolved, there is going to be lots more aspirational buying that will happen, which will itself propel this whole drive towards consumption and better GDP, etc. That's economics, right? So I think we should believe that India can grow, and can grow much faster than many of the other countries, because we've really not been an advanced nation from that perspective. The second part of the question is about how do you perceive things to happen? The fact is that the Indian consumers were always spoiled. I'll tell you why. We were accustomed to calling our Kirana, and maybe in the initial phases, the Kirana would come home. Then subsequently, telephones came in. Then telecalling became the way we call our Kirana to get things done. But items would come, hyper personalization happened even at that time, and one would deliver one packet of bread to the house even at that time. So it's not as if the customers were not accustomed to this at all. As the technology changed, things are becoming even more interesting, because it's lots more advantages happening in terms of their ability to serve a customer, and customers can choose what they want. The question for the retailer, therefore, is, are they present across channels? Are they using all the digital means to really be upfront? Or are they going to have some kind of a resistance to adopt? Because customers are not having any resistance to adopt, and that's got proven. And like what Mohit was telling, the customers in the last 3, 5, 6 quarters have already got accustomed to so much of technology, so much of digital in their day-to-day life, even for studying, for working, for various other things. That digital is a natural medium for them to start asking for items also. But this doesn't mean that people don't want to go to stores. However, the lines are blurring, and that's why you're seeing all this data getting confusing, because it just could be that some of the traditional retailers are using WhatsApp as a medium to tell their customers what they have got as new items every day. They're still supplying items to the houses. They have used digital, but that's not getting recorded as digital. It's still being recorded as traditional, whereas it's gone digital, right? As human beings, we need everything. We need the touch and feel. We need the quality assurance. We need the trust of the retailer. We need the immediacy. We need the pricing advantages. We need the small quantities as well as very large quantity discounts. We need everything as consumers. Whoever can take care of all these various needs are the ones who are going to win. Most importantly, retail has always been a competitive era. It's not been something which is simple. I mean, we've got one retailer for every 100 customers in this country. One of the most retailed places in the world. And because there are more than 1.2 million stores, actually 1.5, 1.6 million stores. So there is enough retail to happen. I think it's about playing it right. It's about not having any resistance, because customers have no more resistance to change.
There's never been a better time than now to be a customer. I'm very, very satisfied with so many options and such quick delivery and amazing discounts. I can return a product, no questions asked. I mean, it's just amazing. My question to you is, how amazing is it to be a retailer at this point in time? I mean, are retailers making money, given that they are, giving us so much benefit and so many services for no extra cost? So is this really sustainable, Arvind?
So I can talk about ourselves. So we have been profitable since 2018. So we set up base in India in 2003. So 15 years we were making losses. We turned around the business in 2018, and despite the hyper aggression by all the competitors in the last 3-4 years, we have been profitable. So the key to being profitable, I think there are 2 or 3 things which I must mention. One is about what you sell, right? Now I'll talk about the B2B context, and we can, talk about B2C too. What you sell. So there are our competitors who are doing huge volumes. They're driving GMV, as it is called in the e-commerce parlance, by selling a lot of commodities, especially oil and sugar. Oil and sugar is a very low margin business, especially on the B2B side. You hardly make 0.5% or 1% gross margin because your competition is against the big wholesale markets of Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc. So if you keep on doing that, you can do even 50,000 crore turnover, because every household consumes a lot of oil in India, a lot of sugar, a lot of atta, chawal, right? But there's hardly any money to be made in this category if you just focus on this. So you have to first make sure you are selling the right product mix. The second thing which is very important is cost. I think that's an area where things have gone completely out of whack in the last 2-3 years. There are companies which are poaching talent from people like us, paying 50-60% salaries. Now, some of these things are not sustainable, because it's not that we pay people quite well. And if somebody is offering double the salary for the same job, they're probably paying too much, paying excessive. So as a company, we focus on managing your costs. So you have to have a lot of efficiencies. You have to be in process. You have to make sure that your processes are automated to the extent possible. Because just to give you an example, when e-commerce is happening, delivery becomes very important. The cost to serve a customer in B2B context could vary from 1.5% to 3%. Similarly, in B2C, it could be 8% to 20%. It can kill your P&L, right? So unless you have automation around these processes, unless you optimize, the vehicle loads, you optimize the distances, etc., you negotiate costs with your delivery partners, it is very hard to make money on the e-commerce or the delivery part of the business. So these are some of the things that you need to take into account: automation, what kind of inventory you carry. You need to have item discipline. Again, I will say people come to buy a particular product at a retail store, whether it's a hypermarket or a kirana or an online store. You come to buy a particular store, right? And if as a retailer, you can simplify that choice making for them, the customers will reward you.
Mohit, are you in agreement with what Arvind is saying? And more importantly, is retail going the right way in terms of profitability? And I'd like you to give me a perspective on the rural story of digitization.
We are going to see a decade of never before expansion. We have top metros in India where modern trade is still around 15 to 17% share. Some of the southern metros are, of course, in their late 30s. Now, imagine if the top 6 metros, modern trade hits 40-50% share. We are talking about tripling and quadrupling of the industry. And of course, that is going to be primarily driven by penetration, which is opening new stores and getting more out of the customer basket through omni-channel. So net, I think this decade is going to be transformative for modern trade and an omni-channel modern trade, I may add, where we are going to see penetration drive share like never before. And, to my mind, it is not about modern trade, e-commerce, general trade. I think for all of us, the win is only when the category grows. And omni-channel is going to make us break these silos in our minds and say, end of the day, it's one unified retail. And we only win when the category grows. So, that's how I'm looking at it. From a rural perspective, I think the issue is still more around distribution. The opportunity there is still largely distribution. Organized retail finds it difficult to penetrate rural because of the costs involved, and which is, both supply chain as well as the other costs. So I think rural is going to, at least not only rural, but what is called rest of urban or urban is going to be more about distribution. And I think there are a lot of smart B2B retail companies and certainly companies like Arvind's which are trying to solve that. So, you've got good distribution network, rural is growing. I don't think modern trade will have a direct model for rural, at least in the foreseeable future.
Kumar, I'm going to close the show with you. And I want your view on what are the opportunities you see in front of you for the retail industry in total, but also what is it about this industry that is giving you sleepless nights?
Yeah, I think the fact that there are consumers in this country and what is called as the demographic dividend or whatever you call it in this country is very evident. And that's the one thing that everybody looks at and thinks, okay, can I take a small pie out of this? And also they know that this is like an ever expanding market. So it's like an artist saying that the canvas is as large as you can make it. So that's the way in which most of the retailers would like to believe that they can. They would face trouble at various points of time. Like at point of time, you may think that your strategy was wrong. At some points of time, you may think that you invested too much. At some point of time, you'd realize that the market is not expanding as fast as you thought you could. But the fact is that the market is there to take. So that is the first part. Second part is that people have to get out of their comfort zones. Retail was never a comfortable business. It is not for the faint-hearted. Only those who know how to work with consumers, are willing to face them day in and day out, are fit to be there. And they've got to learn from the customers. They've got to also many a times teach the customers. That's the beauty of retail. Sometimes you teach the customer, sometimes you learn from them. It's a continuous transaction that's happening. And that's the effectiveness of a retailer that needs to be maintained at every point of time. At the same time, now the retailer can't afford to look traditional. There's a whole lot of traditional retailers still in this country, but many of the retailers have found that modernizing can help them. So there is this traditional, there is modern, and there is also modernizing retailers. And that's the beauty of where we are heading in this country. Things that can get worrisome is sometimes the hoopla that comes around the need to take care of various acts, statutes, and the ease of doing business, etc. It's not an easy country. Many of the international retailers who come in and work in this country find that it takes a long time to understand the laws of this country and to serve and to know that they are adhering to every single law that's pertaining to their business. Things are changing, but it's not changing as fast as it should. But I hope that in the next 2 or 3 years, things will rapidly change. The biggest thing that India has to look for as growth happens in retail is to ensure that there's a level playing field, and even the smallest of businesses are given enough support system for them to be able to survive and thrive. I think that's an important part. Currently, the government is working with a whole lot of people there on a concept called the ONDC, which is the Open Network for Digital Commerce, predominantly to help even small retailers to be visible on digital commerce. I think it's important for the country to grow on a basis where everybody thought that they were given a chance. If they lost out, it's because they didn't grab the chance. But they should not feel that they were marginalized in a system where it was winner takes all. That is the worry that we should be taking care of.
Thank you, all three of you, for an extremely candid and insightful conversation. There's been a lot of, take-home value after speaking to three of you. Yet again, I want to thank you as a customer. It's a lovely time to be a customer. We're truly enjoying ourselves, but more power and luck to you as I hope retail grows and also remains on the path of profitability. Thank you so much.